our Parrot Stars podcast. My name is Alexis Highland. I'm here today with Avery, as always, but
Hello.
Today we have a very special guest. Sheryl Robinson is here today as a guest on our podcast. This is only our second guest we've had on the podcast. We previously had the Parrot Wizard, but he joined us via Zoom. So this is the first time we're having somebody join us in studio, aka my dining room table. So welcome, Sheryl. We are so
Thank
happy
you for
to
having
have
me.
you. Okay, so quick, very brief introduction, because I want Sheryl to tell us her experience and her point of view of how she came to be on this podcast here today. But Sheryl has a long history with parrots. She currently has 2 companion parrots, a golden conure and a gray-cheeked parakeet, very rare species of parakeet. So I'm sure we'll get into that later on. But Sheryl has been volunteering at Parrot Stars literally since we opened. So we've developed a really great friendship. You are very involved with the parrot community. You have a lot of experience. So as kind of our first in-person guest, we were like, this will be a perfect opportunity because we know Sheryl and she's got all this amazing insight into the bird world, a little bit different perspective than what you and I have, Avery. So so Cheryl's been with us for 6 years volunteering at Parrot Stars, but we're kind of piggybacking off of her experience speaking at the AFA conference. So if you aren't familiar with what AFA is, it's the American Federation of Aviculture. Every year they have a big conference, and this year Sheryl was one of the speakers, and she shared her experience with volunteering in a lot of different areas of the bird world.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to hear more about it and hopefully open up the space for you to tell us a little bit more about each of your different experiences. So I just kind of want to get started by asking you kind of how you came to love birds in general. Did it start when you were young? Was it something that was always a part of your life? Is it something you developed later on in adulthood?
I've always loved birds. I always was fascinated by watching them fly and everything, but it was probably when I was 16, I got my first pet bird. It was a cockatiel.
Okay.
And that started the real fascination,
Mhm.
having the pet bird and, taking care of it. And I'm one of the type of people that once they get the fascination, I just dive into it and I want to find all about it.
Yep.
So I'm not really a book learner. I want to get all of the information from other sources. So I want to get into clubs and that type of thing. And it just kind of snowballed from there.
Yeah. What was your cockatiel's name?
I think it was Mr. Gray. I'm not very good with names.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, that's exciting.
Yeah. So you had your cockatiel growing up
Mhm.
and then into adulthood. So I guess, spoiler alert, I got the opportunity to hear your talk at AFA. So I got to hear a lot about your different volunteer experiences and kind of all the different things that you've done. So I think the first volunteer experience you had, and correct me if I'm wrong or tell us kind of how you got started in it, was your time at Lincoln Park Zoo, correct?
Right, that's correct.
All right. So can you tell us a little bit how you even got started there, how the opportunity came about, and what your responsibilities were?
Well, Lincoln Park at that time always had classes for volunteers. So they call them docents, and they have a big class, and you join the class, and they teach you all about the animals that they have. They give you papers with all the facts about the animals, and then they quiz you, they give you tests, and then they send you out into the public and you talk to the public about the different animals.
Oh my gosh.
So
awesome.
yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Do they still offer that? We'd have to look it up, I guess.
They do. They've changed the program, the way they do it, so I don't think it's quite the same. I know they have some sort of program with docents, but it's not exactly the same that it was.
Right.
But I like the birds, so I gravitated towards the birds. You were supposed to go and do all the animals, but I kind
They
of
could always
Same.
find you in the bird area.
right. I kind of
Probably
cheated.
same.
So
Okay, and I guess for those of you who aren't local, because we have listeners from literally all over. So Lincoln Park Zoo is one of there's several zoos in the Chicagoland area, but there's two very large ones, Brookfield, and then Lincoln
right.
Park is literally right downtown Chicago. And it is a beautiful zoo. It's right near the lakefront. So I'm sure that was just an incredible opportunity for you to see really rare stuff up close and personal.
Right. It's a very cool zoo because it's only 35 acres. So it's a neat little zoo that you can see all in one day. And the really nice thing about it is it's free. It's only one of
Yeah.
2 zoos in the country that's
Yeah.
still free. So you get all sorts of people from all over the country.
Yeah.
And it's very interesting to see the types of people and, teach them about things that they've never seen before. There's a
Mhm.
Right.
farm in the zoo. So people have never seen a cow even. You're teaching them about that kind of thing. And it's very fascinating to see their faces
Mhm.
with, showing them animals that they've never seen before and may never see again. And some of the exhibits in, like even the birdhouse, one of the exhibits with the piping plovers, the exhibit has no glass. And they want to know, how do the birds, why don't they fly out into the hallways because there's no glass? And you're explaining to them, well, they have all the food, the water, light in the exhibit, and the hallways are dark. So they wouldn't normally fly into the darkness. And the people are just fascinated because, most people wouldn't think about that.
Yeah.
So it's really kind of interesting just to teach them that. And plus, they're learning about an endangered species. Piping plovers are endangered. And what's really cool now is the piping plovers are actually nesting on Montrose Beach. And so
That's
they've
awesome.
gotten a lot of publicity nesting there. And so it's a win-win for the plovers because they're protected and they've gotten that extra publicity, and people can see them right at Lincoln Park Zoo.
Plovers are really awesome.
Yeah.
That's it sounds like a cool program.
Mhm.
Those who don't know plovers, they're probably one of the cutest birds you might ever see.
Literally,
They look
the
like little
cutest.
like cartoons almost. They're just
And the way they walk, their
they
feet,
they run across the little shores. Yeah.
their feet move lightning fast. They're so cute.
But it sounds like your experience at Lincoln Park is unique because of the zoo itself, because of what you did with the guests is essential because it's a free zoo.
Mhm.
And so people that do what you do there are crucial, and also for the education part. So it has to be pretty rewarding kind of experience, not only to teach, but be involved in such a major organization, like interacting with the guests, but also the animals. Did you do any animal interaction while you were there, or is it mostly guests?
I was not fortunate enough to do any actual animal interaction.
Yeah.
You had to work there so much, and
Yeah.
then you had to get extra trained. And I was there 5 years doing docent program, which you had to work there a long time, and I did not get
Right.
to do that. But for me, although I would have liked to do that, I was okay with not doing that because I was still able to see such cool animals that I never would have been able to learn about,
Right,
and
yeah.
and without doing that. I mean, they had the Micronesian kingfishers, another, extremely endangered. They're extinct in the wild. They came from the island of Guam. Where else would I have ever seen that or learned about it? Plus I got to educate the public about that. Here they're seeing birds that are totally extinct on the island that they came from.
Yeah.
They're still trying to get them to breed enough to reintroduce them to another island, but they'll never go back to Guam because the brown tree snake was accidentally introduced and they can't get rid of the snakes that ate all the birds.
Yeah.
So, even though I was never able to handle the birds, but every, year I got to see, were they able to breed? Were they able to lay eggs? I got to be part of that
Yeah, to keep up with
and
the
know
that's cool.
there's 25 zoos also doing this and keep up on, which zoos were having some success, which ones weren't. And it was fun to try and keep up and learn about, what was happening, what was successful, what wasn't. So,
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Well, I mean, to me, I think I hope it's inspiring for people who aren't really sure how to get involved with working with animals. I mean,
Yeah.
as many people are probably aware, it's a highly competitive world we're in, working with animals in any capacity. But to do something like this program that you participated in, it's a great way for people to get involved and gain experience and, just like you're saying, engage with the animals, but in a way that's benefiting them kind of indirectly, like because it's raising awareness about what's happening with the different species, both in captivity and in the wild. And it's, I would imagine, giving you a very holistic approach to just birds in general, because I think something that I've always loved about you is that, yes, your passion lies deeply in parrots, but you have a lot of knowledge about all different types of birds. And I think that's probably a common denominator among most of our listeners and a lot of people that we work with, is that, yes, we all have this underlying love for parrots, but it expands to all different species as well. So that's a really cool opportunity to kind of see the parrots, because I would assume they would have had parrots there too, but to see all the different species and how diverse just birds are in general.
I think another testament how like your passion is you actually went out and did it. So many
Yeah.
people are like, "Oh, it would be so awesome to like do what you do,"
right.
but you actually did it, which is cool to get that experience. But also, I think a lot of people don't realize is that the majority of any interaction you have with like the zoo staff
Mm-hmm.
is usually volunteers, the people that are
Yeah.
taking their time, like the people that stand outside of the exhibits and tell you about the animal are volunteers, like what you
Exactly.
do, because you rarely would talk to a keeper.
Yeah.
So it's really cool and, like I said, crucial what you do because you are the education part.
Right. I mean, they do have the keepers talking to the public, but the keepers have so many other responsibilities taking care of the animals. They have limited time.
Of course, yes.
So they really rely on volunteers to work more one-on-one with the public. So yeah, and the docents really have specific responsibilities. They have to work like once a week or 3 times a month and make that commitment. You can't just go there once a month and just willy-nilly. They rely on you to be there. So it's really a responsibility to do that, and they rely on the docents to be there to help.
Yeah, of course.
It's so incredible. I love hearing your background. It's so because so much of our conversations now are kind of like current events. So it's kind of fun to go back and like hear your story a little bit, because so much of what we do is just like our day-to-day lives. Because we see each other every single week. But yeah, it's kind of fun to go back and hear your origin stories. And all right, so after your time at Lincoln Park Zoo, or during your time in Lincoln Park Zoo, I don't know if these two things kind of coincided, but you got an opportunity to go to Costa Rica, which, for anybody that is interested in seeing wildlife up close and personal, Costa Rica is a phenomenal place to do that, because they have so much species diversity packed into a relatively small country. So they still have a lot of natural habitat. So can you tell us a little bit about your time in Costa Rica, how you got your opportunity to go there, and what the experience was like?
Yeah, well, I had already left Lincoln Park Zoo at that point, and I was actually working at Brookfield Zoo. But I wasn't working with the birds. I was actually working in the accounting area, in the finance area. Most people in the bird area were kind of amused
Mm-hmm.
that I was liking the birds and wanting to be around the birds. And they were fascinated that I was working in accounting and wanting to be with the birds. I don't know why they were so fascinated,
Yeah.
but they were. It was very strange. Me going to Costa Rica was totally a fluke. They had an opportunity for a zookeeper to go to Costa Rica to not replace, but
To like cover the
Fill in.
responsibility.
Yeah.
yes, thank you. To recover the responsibilities for keepers that were at a private sanctuary in Costa Rica for Christmas and New Year's. Those people were going to go on vacation. They needed somebody to cover them.
Okay.
They wanted zookeepers from Brookfield to go. Well, obviously, I wasn't a zookeeper, but they didn't have enough people to go. And I'm like, this is perfect. I'd always wanted to be a zookeeper, always wanted to do with birds. Why not me? Well, the curator of birds and I she did not like me. I really don't know why, but she really did not like me. And so she basically said no right from the start. And I don't know, somehow I finagled my way to go. But I really didn't, I don't even know who planned the trip, whatever. I didn't plan very well. I knew I was going to Costa Rica, but I really didn't know where. I didn't know the great details. So I'm thinking Costa Rica, warm weather. All right, this is good. So I got, warm clothes and everything. This was in the mountains. Mountains are cold.
Yes.
So I had one jacket with me and I wore that the whole time.
Yeah, I saw that picture you put on your presentation.
Yeah,
You're
I
always in
had
that
my
jacket.
pink jacket. It was very pink jacket. I wore that the whole time. I learned very well that plan better when you're going out of the country. Make sure that you are part of the planning and make sure you know where you're going. And that
And
was
what altitude?
So it was a very eye-opening trip that
Mhm.
makes sure you plan. The one thing that I was promised was to go into one of the natural reserves and go on this tram ride.
Mhm.
I didn't get to go to that either. So it was a very strange trip. I mean, I really enjoyed working with the animals, with the birds, and it was a great experience. But it wasn't anything like I was seeing in my mind when I had gone.
I know you picture Costa Rica as like from the postcard.
Yep.
Right. Warm weather and whatever.
Yeah.
And the birds were, I mean, just some of the birds were crazy. I had to work with this keel-bill toucan.
Mhm.
And, toucans are big. They roost up high. And I'm only 5 foot. So this bird is roosting up high. And I go and put the food in there. And this bird is having a field day pecking me in the head. And
That's a toucan, Bill. That had to kind of hurt a little bit.
yeah, but the bird was loving it.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, thanks so much. And this is the whole 2 weeks of this, so bird really liked it. And the other birds, it was just I was deathly afraid of this bird. It's Victorian crown pigeon, and they're
pretty big
They're
pigeons.
pretty big.
Yeah.
And it's a ground bird in this big enclosure. They had other ground birds in there.
Mhm.
I'd take the food and put it down, and the bird didn't care that the food was there. This bird was going to chase me around the enclosure, and it did. And it tried to kick me. And I was just deathly afraid of this bird. And I to this day, I just have a very healthy respect for them and stay away.
I know,
Yeah.
that's funny. Yeah, they're really pretty birds, though.
They are.
Yeah.
I agree. They're pretty, but I
Yeah.
don't go anywhere near them.
Yeah, it does. I mean, these experiences do kind of open your eyes to like sometimes it's not always like the
Yeah.
quote unquote easiest experience. Like it's hard mentally and physically.
Mhm.
When I did we had a similar experience when I did my internship at Willowbrook Wildlife Center. They had a barn owl, and you literally part of the like duties before you were able to pass, because it's like a double door system, so they didn't escape on you. And there was like a little army station where they had a construction hat and like a little baton that you'd have to like put the construction hat on and carry the baton to try to keep the barn owl from like swooping down and hitting your head as you'd go and do
Oh,
food and water. So yes, I
yeah.
can relate. And I like don't have a natural fear of like any bird, but it is intimidating when you're like
Yeah.
right there next to them. You're like,
It is
I'm
kind
not
of
trying to hurt you. You don't hurt me.
yeah.
Well, it gives you a new respect for zookeepers because this is what they have to deal with. And you really have to be I don't know if brave is the right word, but you have to have
Composed.
a healthy respect for the birds because you are going into their area
Mm-hmm.
and this is they're not trying to hurt you,
Right.
but you have to really respect their
Their boundaries.
their boundaries and work with them. And I only had a very short time to work with them, but you need to learn to train them and stuff so you
Mhm.
can work with them easier. I obviously didn't have time to do that, but you can realize what the keepers have to do
Yeah.
to be able to work with the birds comfortably, to give the food without getting pecked in the head every time. And,
Yeah.
so.
It does. I think these volunteer opportunities do give you an appreciation of the grind that a lot of
Mm.
people have to experience every day. And it is a super rewarding job, but it is taxing. I mean,
Mhm.
it's not easy.
But also the volunteering, it gets you like some people kind of affiliate volunteering with you're just doing a little bit of time doing one thing, but the opportunities that volunteering can lead to, even
Mhm.
though that you were working at Brookfield,
Mm.
you volunteered yourself to do this really awesome experiences. So just another what I was saying earlier about you just
Yeah.
do it,
Yeah, you have to
and
take the
it
initiative.
could lead to some really cool things that you didn't think you'd be able to do.
Right.
You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? So,
Because nowadays, to be a zookeeper, you need a degree in biology and you need all these other things. I don't have that. So there's no way I would ever be able to do that in real life.
Mhm.
So that was my, one opportunity to get to do that. And I was very grateful for that opportunity.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, and I think your story is probably similar to a lot of people's, that they would be so willing and happy to do those experiences, but it can't be their career for whatever reason. That it's what if it's the educational background, their circumstances, whatever, they just can't make a career out of it. But it gives you that opportunity to get in there and get involved and have those really like memorable life experiences, but in a way that is not sacrificing the career they're in or whatever their situation is. So it's really cool. But I have a soft spot for Costa Rica. I love it there. So you'll have to go back one day when you can go down to like the beaches and
yes, I do want to go back to
Because-
Costa Rica and
it is like the amount of diversity they have just in like where they are in the rainforest, but how much diversity is among the different altitudes. Like when we were there was like this species, I want to say it was butterfly, that it only lived at a specific altitude among the mountains in Costa Rica. Like it was such a specific like territory that they were in, but it just goes to show you like you can see
Right.
all these different things at the different altitudes there. So it's really a cool country. So diverse. Okay, so bringing it back to the States. So what kind of took place after your time in Costa Rica?
So after Costa Rica, I took a trip with Earthwatch.
Okay.
And with Earthwatch, I went to the Tambopata Research Center in Peru. And that is run by Dr. Donald Brightsmith,
Okay.
who I had been president of the Northern Illinois Parrot Society for 10 years, and we had donated money to him. So I knew about his project. I don't know the length of time he's been working with the Tamupata Research Center. It's since been renamed to something else, but he's been doing research there for a long time. So I knew about his project, and I really wanted to go down there. And with Earthwatch, you actually helped do the project. So he did project with the macaws down there. He would watch the macaws fly in
Mm-hmm.
and watch them land on the clay lick. They would count how many macaws would come in. They'd find them, count them on the clay lick. Then they'd have artificial nests in the forest. They would find out how many birds would take those nests, find out how many eggs they would lay. They would go in and measure the eggs, and if they hatch, and measure the chicks, measure the hatchlings, do all that stuff with the parents always came back and took the chicks. So they did all that type of research, collected all that data. They did even more than that, but that was at that time the main research that they were doing. And so that's what we were helping with. And it was just fascinating to see. They had some macaws that were like they would just come back. They were they become chicos, and so they were like the wild macaws that just come back and hang out at the lodge
because they're curious.
Yeah. And it was just amazing. They had the researchers that would help us count on the cliff, and so we could see the scarlet macaws, and they call them yellow and green, yellow and blue macaws. They don't call them blue and gold macaws. And we would go on the trails and find the nests and observe the nests, and sometimes the macaws would fight amongst themselves to take over the nests. So it was really fascinating to see the behaviors of the macaws. And we watched them climb the nests, which was really fascinating because they basically just use a string.
So high up in the air.
Yeah.
That is really cool.
Yeah. And then they come down the nest, and they take all the measurements of whether it's the eggs or the chicks. And it's just fascinating to watch.
Yeah.
So we got to do all of that. I myself was not, I don't want to say, I guess I could say coordinated enough to walk through the forest so much. So I was very good at data entry though, and they were about 3 months behind putting in all their data entry in their computers. So it wasn't really part of the Earthwatch part of the trip, but I helped them catch up their data entry in their computer. So it's still volunteering, but not part of the Earthwatch thing. So
that's awesome. Though.
Yeah, so I still got to help, and it was still fascinating to see all the birds. Just amazing to see them out in the wild.
Yeah, in the wild is so special.
So I guess that's one of the reasons it's impossible not to love you, is because you are very good at like assessing a situation and seeing where your strengths can be utilized. I mean, I would anticipate that they probably were so grateful. So was the time in Peru the first time you saw one flying in the wild?
Oh yes, it was just, you can't really describe it. It's just amazing because you see them flying and you hear the call, and then to see them on the clay lick, and then the smaller birds come in. So you've got the orange-cheeked parrots and the blue-headed pioneers, and they're all coming in, and they all have their own pecking order, and it's just beautiful. And you want to take them and hug them, and it's just fascinating to see. And you want to stay there and watch them forever, and you want to just preserve that, and you want everybody to be able to see what it's like. You want to share it with everyone
Yeah.
because it is so beautiful, and it's what nature's supposed to look like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you really can't describe it. There aren't really words to describe how beautiful it is to someone who hasn't really seen it.
It's something that you carry with you. I mean, I think I would guess, and correct me if I'm wrong, but that's probably a big driving force as to why you've stayed so passionate about parrots and why you work so hard in the education element, because the more people are educated about parrots in any capacity, the greater the chances is that of us doing a little bit better to protect them in the wild. So I think you can't ever underestimate how important and valuable it is just doing the education side of it, or sharing like this experience that you've had with the public, because hopefully it will be inspiring for people to be motivated to go to these countries and see them in the wild and help boost some of the tourism that helps protect and incentivize people to protect them in the wild. But it just kind of opens their eyes to all the different ways that we can do conservation work and help protect them in the wild.
Right.
Yeah.
But that's why, I mean, I strongly believe in, education, conservation, research. They have to give money for that stuff.
Yeah.
It's really important. There's still, avian diseases that need to be researched.
Yep.
There's still, education that need to go out there in the native countries and here. There's still conservation that we need to help in the native areas and in the U.S. There's a lot of interbreeding of species that, sometimes it's okay, but sometimes we need to keep the species pure. And we need to
That's huge. Yeah.
speak about that more. And, just to, I have my little gray cheeked parakeet.
Yeah. It's the only one I've ever seen
Yeah.
of that species.
And there's vets that have never seen them.
Yep.
And they used to bring them in the millions. And,
Little kiwi.
Yeah. And they're going to
I'll
be
know
gone.
kiwi. Yeah.
And that's, it makes me so sad.
I know.
But that's the kind of education that we need, and people don't realize that. People ask me, well, what kind of birds do you have? And I usually just say parakeets, because no one knows what it is, and nobody's gonna know what it is. And it's really sad, because yes, I know they're very, very, very noisy, but they should at least know that it's a different species
Right.
than a budgerigard.
Of course. And that's again like what the common theme is, what you did for volunteers that want to have the experience, like what you did is just like do it.
Yeah.
And again, nowadays it's very difficult, and you're probably going to be denied and turned down more than a few
It's
times.
competitive,
But if you really are passionate, like you are, Cheryl, there are things that you can be involved with volunteering to have those type of experiences, which is crucial for what you were talking about with conservation at ground level. Or if you simply have an appreciation for it, you have you have that connection, and then that's the
Yeah.
first step to conservation. Like even the people like Illinois, Chicagoland, it's just go to a little metro park, a little
Right.
oasis,
Yep.
like down the road, and walk around the trails and just appreciate the birds
Yes.
that are
native.
here. Don't so many times. I'm not gonna go down the rabbit hole. This isn't, this is about Cheryl. But I want to go on a tangent. I go birding all the time. Every single time, almost everybody that walks by me has like their earphones in,
yeah.
and is talking on the phone, or is like sometimes it's exercise, whatever, but people just walking around on the phone, like just just be quiet. Like, just
Right.
enjoy it.
Appreciate
Mhm.
it. Yeah.
But what I'm trying to say is it starts at that level.
Yep.
Right. Well,
Yeah.
you can go out and see the sandhill crane
I
migration.
know. Oh my gosh.
I mean, there's
Yeah.
so many things just around here.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You can go see piping plovers.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, there's places around here that you can go. Um, you can look online and find places. There's tours all over
I know.
in
Yeah.
this area. You don't have to
Just-
go to Peru or
Exactly.
Costa Rica.
Yeah. Just get involved.
Yeah.
Mhm.
The,
Yeah, and from what I hear and what I like is my favorite thing about listening to you talk to customers is like I hear you talk about these past experiences and how you staying so motivated when you got into birds and gaining these opportunities and these experiences and how that has had such a huge trickle down effect and how many people that you've positively impacted or shared parrot knowledge with. So we'll talk about it briefly, but you are with us at Parrot Stars all the time. But I kind of knew who you were prior to meeting you at Parrot Stars because you did have a lot of involvement with the bird clubs that used to be in Chicagoland. And there's a lot with the bird clubs that existed in the late 90s, early 2000s that we don't probably need to or want to highlight in this podcast. But for the most part, like those were communities of people that were really trying to come together and share their passion for mostly parrots with the one that you ran, but in all different capacities of parrot or of avian love and concern and education. So you were the president of NIPS, right? So
Correct.
NIPS was Northern Illinois Parrot Society.
Correct.
So there was a couple different associations or bird clubs, and you started that club yourself, correct? Or you were the president, you became the president of it for a long time, right?
yeah, I was president for a long time. I did not start it.
Okay. So can you kind of share kind of what that was like back in the heyday of bird clubs?
The heyday. Goodness gracious. Um, yeah, well, in the heyday, we met monthly.
Mm-hmm.
We had a monthly meeting. It was the first Friday of every month. We met at
Like a community center.
yeah, it was basically a nursing center,
Mm-hmm.
and they let us use their big event room, so it was free. So it was very nice. Some of their residents would come down and share space with us. So we would have speakers, or sometimes we would just have talk about the birds ourselves. We'd have some kind of agenda every month. They were nice enough; they would let us bring our birds. So we had birds at the meeting. We had snacks. So it was a nice little get together.
Mhm.
We usually had about 30 or 40 people in our good heyday years. And it was nice because we discussed different things about our birds, behavior, nutrition,
Mhm.
and we could share different things and ideas. We went to see the sandhill cranes on a trip once. So we did different things. We also had educational seminars, and that was the big thing that I did it as far as that was my claim to fame.
Mhm.
We did 6, and so we got really big name speakers for the
Mhm.
bird world. Usually 3 or 4 speakers. We had Dr. Sakis.
Yeah.
We had Irene Pepperberg one year. We had Sally Blanchard one year. We had veterinarians. We had animal behaviorists. I've been looking through some of the ones just recently, and a lot of them have already passed away. It's
Yeah.
really sad. But I did program guides, so we had their talks and program guides.
Yeah.
We had lunch. It was I think it was like $40 we charged, and any proceeds went to avian research and conservation and stuff. And I felt really proud that we were able to do that.
Yeah.
So a little money, it wasn't a great amount of money, but at least we were able to do some money to different programs, and we were always able to do the different things. And were able to support
Yeah.
different things. And that was what I felt was very important to do.
Yeah.
And I was very passionate about that. Unfortunately, the club didn't sustain itself. The internet started, and then the treasurer and I were doing the bulk of the work, and we just couldn't sustain this with just the two of us doing it.
Yeah.
I was having health problems, she was having health problems, and it just kind of died away. And
It makes me sad too, because I mean, that was my first introduction into all of this was we would go to the bird club meetings. Like I remember that so vividly when I was little that was this is just common practice. And yeah, I think it was probably the internet that was the driving force as to why it kind of disbanded, because why do people need to go out in the dead of winter in Chicagoland and meet in person to have these conversations when they can just have them in a blog or in like an online chat room? So that I think that probably is a lot to do with it. But it is still important, I think, to highlight, because I think that was such a huge element of how kind of aviculture has developed, because those bird clubs were so popular and were very prevalent across the country for so long that it is kind of what inspired a lot of the initiatives with conservation groups, with good, bad, or otherwise, all the different things we now know about breeding in captivity, that kind of shared knowledge. But I think what it probably was most valuable about was really giving people an opportunity to discuss their parrot behaviors. This is still something, I mean, it's 2024 and it's still a massive part of our conversation is like, how do we functionally set these animals up for success in captivity, offer them enriching lives, giving them the opportunity to succeed in captive environments? And back then, that the only way to do it was word of mouth and sharing your personal experiences. Now we kind of know a little bit more about like the benefits of the positive reinforcement training and having like good, enriching, fulfilling environments and enclosures. But that was kind of like your opportunity to learn those things. So if you were a novice bird person or you were just getting into it, those bird clubs were
Right.
essential in how you would gain your information and your knowledge base.
Mhm.
So you've been doing the good work for a long time. So we'll kind of take that into like how we got to know you at Parrot Stars. So we started at Parrot Stars about 6.5 years ago now. It's just crazy. That is so long, so fast. But I remember it so vividly. I'm pretty sure like you walked in, or like I vividly remember us like sitting in the office for a long time. Either I took you back there or I walked in and you were already in the office or something. But at that time and still now, you were the state coordinator for AFA. And for me, I knew what AFA was, and I thought it would be a great opportunity for us to participate in AFA, and you were kind of sharing what that would look like. But most importantly, we just kind of got to know each other, and we told you what our goals and mission was at Parrot Stars. And almost instantaneously, you were like, okay, well, I'll help you however I can. And I was like, please, I need as much help as anyone is willing to give. Those are what we call the dark days when we were working like literally 18-hour days. Sheryl has seen some dark moments come out of Alexis in her time. But no, it was just a great opportunity for you to kind of see us at the very beginning. So you've seen us some more than like most of the staff has seen. You've been with us from the very, very beginning. Just my mom and Eve, really, and
Yeah.
you.
True.
So can you tell us a little bit about what your time has been like at Parrot Stars? What is your favorite part? Kind of what do you see as exciting for the future? Kind of where you sit with everything now, because you volunteer with us, just so everyone knows, almost every single Saturday. You are giving up your personal time to come help us at the store, and we cannot
I know.
reiterate
Yeah,
enough like
it's-
how valuable it is and how grateful we are every
I
time
know,
we
it's
see your
always nice
face.
to see Cheryl up there.
We're like, oh, okay,
You feel
we
like
can
it's gonna
breathe.
be
Cheryl's
okay.
here. Oh my God, at least the customers will get fully greeted and rang out, and phones will get answered, and people will
Yes.
leave with
It's always
someone smiling at them before they leave the
Oh
door.
gosh,
So
you're gonna make me blush.
plus you got to be getting to the point of being famous at Parrot Stars because
I-
every single you
everyone
already
recognizes
yeah,
you.
you already are. But you always have the golden conure earrings on and your
some sort of really flashy parrot
yes,
t-shirt.
yeah, really in your face parrot shirt that you can't miss, and so it's just kind of it's become an icon. It really has. So.
Okay.
Anyways, to the original.
So I know never not to wear a parrot shirt. Gotta wear the parrot shirt.
You gotta wear
You
the
have
parrot
to.
shirts.
It's a staple now.
Okay. Make sure I always have the shirts laundered.
Right?
Yeah, you have a slew of them. I know.
Yes, I do. I do. I love the store. I love you guys. You guys are my second family, and
Yeah.
sometimes your first. Your store is my happy place. It really, really, really is. You have a great philosophy with the birds, which is really what drew me to the store.
Mhm.
I said in my talk to AFA that I walked in the store, you showed me around, you showed me the different rooms with the nursery, the
Quarantine.
thank you, that's
Mhm.
the word.
And like
Yeah,
education.
the education and how it's all separate, and the way you treat your birds, that it's all about the education,
Mhm.
your philosophy that you don't care if somebody calls you and has a question about the bird, whether or not it's bought from your store,
Mhm.
you'll answer the question and
Mhm.
help the people. And to me, that's the philosophy that you need.
Mhm.
And that's just so important to me. It doesn't make it easy for you guys because some of the people that call are got some crazy things that they come up with, but it makes it wonderful for the birds,
Mhm.
and that's what's important. And I think that's what's really important for the people in the long run.
Yeah.
And you guys are you're always running around, and you're always just you're always busy, and
Mhm.
it's just kind of crazy there, but it's a good kind of crazy.
Mhm.
And the birds are always first.
Yeah.
And that is so important. And I think anybody that really comes to the store and really takes a look around sees that.
Yeah.
And the reviews that you guys get for the store convey that.
Yeah.
I see the reviews that you guys get, and 9 out of 10 of them say
Mhm.
that in so many words. And to me, that says it all. I mean, people come from all over to come to your store. They come from California, they come from Wisconsin, they come from Canada, they
Mhm.
come from
Literally everywhere. Yeah.
everywhere. I mean, and they're driving from these places, and they're calling from these places, and you're shipping birds to these places.
Mhm.
That says a hell of a lot, because
Mhm.
there's bird stores in those places,
Mhm.
and they're still getting birds from you. I mean, I remember not that long ago, there was a lady that came from Texas, and she said there's a store in Texas, and she'd rather come to your store to get the bird.
Yeah.
That says a hell of a lot. There's not many places that, people that would say that.
Yeah.
So it's not just me that sees the positive. And, I hope that you realize that, because that just means that the public is seeing that,
Mhm.
and that is so important. So I mean, to me, when I hear that, I feel so good because I know that you guys are doing the right thing,
Yeah.
and that means great things to me because I know the store's staying around. So
Yeah.
so my family is okay.
Yeah.
um I just love it there. I mean, I like to go around the showroom and say hello to all the birds.
Yep.
And I go around the showroom, and I've got to go around the showroom because you're always moving the birds around.
So you gotta find where everybody's at.
I
Yes,
know.
because someone will ask me where the birds are, and I'm like, well, they were over there last week, but let me figure it out.
Yeah.
That might be some of my OCD coming through where I like can't let anything sit as is for 5 minutes. We gotta
Well,
constantly
yeah,
be
it's
moving and
which
changing.
which is okay, but it's kind of embarrassing sometimes when I'm like, well, you were there, and now they're and yeah,
It's only been 6 days since I was here last, but somehow everything's been flipped.
right, and then
Uh,
that's challenging. But I eventually find the birds, and
Yeah.
so, but it's great. I just love working with you guys. It's I'm always learning something.
Mhm.
You've always got new products there. So I'm always learning something. You've got the new sprouting the seed stuff.
Oh yeah, the
So
cheerleaf.
I learned about that.
Mhm.
So you've always got something new going on. You have the summer festivals that are always challenging, and a lot of fun. So there's always something happening,
Yeah.
and it's just I don't know. People like they ask me, well, why do you want to volunteer there? Why they ask me, well, why don't you want to get paid there? And I'm like, I don't I can't qualify to get paid. I
Mhm.
can't work there full time. Um, I'm not I can't lift 50-pound bags.
Mhm.
I can't do that. I know I can't do that. So this is my next best thing.
Mhm.
And I enjoy it. Somebody else probably wouldn't enjoy just running the register or putting the credit card receipts
Stickering
together,
a
or
million
or
items.
or printing the packets. I don't mind that. And so for me, it's okay.
Yeah.
I like hearing the stuff that goes around and hearing the stories. I like it. So
Yeah.
for me, it's fine.
Yeah.
And I like seeing the birds and seeing the people, and
Hanging out.
I don't remember what the question
That's
was.
okay. No, you kinda covered it.
Cover
Well,
it. Yeah.
I just can't begin to tell you enough how grateful I am for everything you've done for Parrot Stars. I mean, I c I I don't want the work or the volunteering or the tasks that you do to go, underestimated because they are so incredibly helpful, and it's such a relief for me because there is so much that goes into training people and having them come on as staff. But like every time that I see and hear you working with the customers, I mean, it is top notch information that you're providing them. And you're always beyond willing to literally walk them around the store, give them advice about the food and the toys and all the different things that you've accumulated over 25 years of doing work with parrots and understanding and learning about them. Um, and I know that you've made a huge impact on our customers. And we do have customers that come in and they do immediately recognize you and they want to learn from you. And I think it's just really gives me incredible peace of mind knowing that you're at the store. And you help us on the register. Like, again, I can't let that, like, go unnoticed, like, it sounds, like, so lame, like, just running the register, but, like, the number you probably engage with on a Saturday more volume of people than the staff do because we often get kind of clumped with one family or we're spending hours doing one project or whatever it is, where you're seeing so many people, and it's so valuable, and then outside of that, you've just become literally one of my very best friends, and we talk about everything having to do with birds and much, much beyond that. So it just from like a friendship level, just having you around always makes me feel better and like I can always vent to somebody that is not my direct staff. So sometimes Cheryl hears me complain about things and she's probably like, oh my God, Alexis is crazy. But you're always very patient with me when I'm having a bad day. And I'm like, Cheryl, I can't talk right now. I need 5 minutes. And you're always like, okay, I'll come right back. So, but it's been really wonderful having you. And it's been fun for this journey to kind of evolve with you. And I think it's also important to mention that like your point of view is really valuable because you aren't necessarily in it all day, every day. You do give this outside perspective that I think helps keep us grounded. It helps us have realistic goals and expectations. You help so much with that summer festival. I mean, really, to our listeners, the summer festival would not have happened that first year if Cheryl had not been really pushing me. I mean, you and we really pushed hard that first year. And even though it was so much smaller than what it's become, if you had not kind of kept me going and kept me motivated that first year, I probably would have stepped back because I was so overwhelmed and I was like, I can't do this. But you helped so much. You helped me with the raffles and all the millions of things I couldn't even begin to list now. And then you've helped the summer festival evolve to what it is today, where it's just this massive program and it's multi days of like work and labor and planning. And I mean, you're so generous with all the things that you offer getting ready for that summer festival beyond just what you do every single Saturday. And I trust you to do it. I mean, you're an incredibly talented writer. I'm like, can you compose this email for me? Can you help me come up with newsletter ideas? And I have full faith that you can do it and you're going to execute it well. So it's been really a humongous, humongous help. So
Oh, you're very welcome.
yeah.
You're always a no nonsense too. The way like you'll
Oh
say
yeah,
it
you keep us in
to
check.
customers too. In a good way. You know, you're not smacking around customers or anything like that figuratively. But you'll say it, you know,
Very matter.
like
Yeah.
how it's supposed to be, and that's always nice. Sometimes I get caught up in my customer wanting to like beat around the bush so they don't get upset or something like that. But you say it like it is, and that's always appreciated
Yeah.
because sometimes that's what it takes. But going back to what was mentioned earlier, is Saturdays is our busiest day. Saturdays
Mhm.
are sometimes where the only days people can come.
Right.
And you are the last person that people see and interact with before leaving. And I think that's huge because that's where a lot
Mhm.
of why we, you know, it goes down to our support because people love the place and you're the last impression. And so your passion is obvious, which is awesome. I think a
Yeah.
lot of people need to understand that. So, but that's cool. Thanks, Cheryl. I haven't known you very long, but it's pretty cool.
Oh, man. Well, if anybody wants to meet the now famous Sheryl Robinson, they just need to come hang out at Parrot Stars on a Saturday and get to know her a little bit. She'll tell you all the things you could ever possibly want or need to know about anything having to do with parrots. And now we've learned many, many other species as well. You have so much information in your brain. It's really impressive.
And my shirts.
And your shirts and these
Yeah.
incredible earrings.
I don't even know where you get those. They're so like specifically in your face.
Perfect
I'm
for
gonna have to make a
volunteering
list
at
of
a
'em.
bird store.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not very many places that you can like really confidently sport
That's
a
true. You
t-shirt
wouldn't
that
go out
talks
to
about
dinner.
inside jokes of
Right.
owning a parrot. But yeah, it's been really fun. And I'm so beyond grateful that you are a part of our Parrot Stars family. And I know that you will continue to be for as long as Parrot Stars is around. So it's
Definitely.
no question that we had to have you early as a guest on this podcast because you are such a hugely important facet to our store and what makes us us. And I mean, you're there every week. So people see you and need to get to know who you are. So it's been really fun and I'm excited for our future. Although every time I see Sheryl, I feel we're recording this now in the beginning of October. It's probably going to come out later this fall, but every time I see her, I'm like, Cheryl's going to yell at me that we haven't started working on next year's summer festival.
Yeah.
She's kind of like my professor in that way, where I'm always like, oh my God, Cheryl's going to be mad I haven't turned in my summer festival homework yet. Oh my God.
Somebody's got to do it.
She's always looking at me like, have you started? And I'm like, not yet. It's coming. I swear. I'm not ignoring it. I know we have to start planning. Oh my gosh. All right. Well, I love you. And I'm so grateful that you came on our podcast today.
Well,
you.
thank you
Hopefully
very
we
much
can
for
have
having
you-
me.
Yes, absolutely. And hopefully we can have you again.
Yes,
You'd
I'd
like
love
to come
that.
back, we'd love to have you again. So, because everyone knows we could talk about everything having to do with parrots for years. So there's plenty of topics that we can cover.
Each of your experiences could probably be one whole episode, Sheryl.
real.
Part 1, 2, 3, 4. And we'll definitely post the link to your video, your
Yeah.
presentation in our notes so people can watch it. We covered a lot of what you spoke about, but definitely it'll be a good thing for people to, experience other things that you talked about.
Yeah.
So,
Amazing. Well, thank you everybody for listening. Again, thank you, Avery, for always supporting me in this podcast, and Sheryl for coming out and doing our guest feature here. And then if anybody listening in ever wants us to cover particular topics, feel free to shoot us an email. We're always responsive to people's suggestions and feedback about our little podcast here. As always, shameless request, if you can rate and review the podcast, we really appreciate it. It does really make a great impact for us. And downloading and sharing the podcast as well really helps the podcast continue to grow. So thank you so much, everybody, for listening. And again, thank you to you guys. And as always, Avery.
well, Sheryl.
Be kind to your parrot, and your parrot will be kind to you.
Aw,
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you,
All right.
everybody.
Thank you, everyone.